think you're on mute.
Can you hear us now, Dave?
Yes, much better.
Okay, thank you. Jörg Zimmermann absent. Dieter Waltz is absent. Catherine Magill is absent, and we're waiting. Who I think is pulling in as we speak. All right.
It's McGill.
She said she's absent. I said she's absent.
Yeah, but it's pronounced McGill.
Oh, what did I say?
Maggle.
I did? Thank you.
Okay.
Must be my accent. Uh, Oral, oral communication for items not on the agenda. Does topic anybody on Zoom? No? Okay. Then let's continue to the approval of the May 7 minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Any changes?
I have one change.
Okay.
Um, it's in the revised, well, actually, maybe the tree removal.
Is it in the in the minute?
No, it's actually not.
Oh, if it's not in the minute.
Probably.
Okay, so for the record, Judy Murphy is present. All right, so anybody have any changes? No changes? Can I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. And we have obviously abstentions of the people who weren't there last time. All right. One second. Just looking at the wrong thing. Committee business. So as I mentioned last month, we got an email from the town that she is putting together what she calls a planned town feature of the month for each committee. And so we obviously need to put that together. And what I was wondering is, how do you feel? Because I would like to get a feeling, how would the committee like to be presented? Would you feel comfortable, each of you say once what you would find important to say about the conservation?
Us or
Now, in
About
that
us?
feature,
or about why we.
whatever, what
on
you
the
find
committee?
important, what you find important.
So Mariana, you asked, provide you with bullet points,
No,
play of what we.
no, I'm asking for one key you feel comfortable right now. What comes into your mind?
Right now?
Yeah, if something comes into your mind, if not, okay too. I just would like to get a feeling, what are we? Why am I on something like that? And it's okay if you don't feel you put on
And this is in addition to
it's just to get a feeling.
the whole,
And then
the
we'll
whole
build
thing.
on it. Yeah.
'Cause I would think we should lead with our mission statement in a way, because a lot of people don't,
Uh-huh.
so.
Okay. Okay, so mission statement. Anything else more personal or more specific?
I think part of our role is to try to educate within the community with respect to the unique environment in which we live in Portola Valley, that very atypical community. And I think part of our role is to help individuals understand why and embrace that. It's not mandated, you have to do it. that way, but to open the opportunity of why it's special to as an ambassador for. I think that's one of the things I look for in my participation.
Okay, that sounds good. Anybody, you have some more?
No, that was more than a sentence.
And that's
Sorry.
fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Anybody else?
I think it's an opportunity to participate in community. I enjoy building around a place that I identify with very strongly. It's an opportunity to share my experience and expertise of the local ecology.
Judy, do you share some? You already said them.
No, I just said, I think that, my individual statement, that I really love it here. I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in projects, help keep Portola Valley as natural and all those things as it is.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we're each going to write this out.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
it's,
assume, yeah.
it's just to get
Yeah.
a start.
I think what I like is hearing from about why they live here and what they want. So when we do site evaluation, what is it they care about in their yard that makes them love being here?
Mhm. Okay. Nancy, you have some thoughts? I'll add my thoughts. I think what I would stress, I really love the natural environment, animals, the whole food chain, with the apex predator, mountain lion, and how important those things are. Our trees that we have now learned, the oak trees, if you have a good canopy, they actually help slowing down firestorms. So we always learn. This is the other thing. We are out. So what I love is being out in the community, be it for looking at a tree that needs to be cut or a site visit, and hearing what people, but also educating people, like we had this land on one of the site visits, and she was absolutely eating it. She didn't know much about the area, and she was really listening to what we had to say, incorporate, and so then we have ambassadors, producing ambassadors for our natural environment. So those are my 5 cents. So with this as a skeleton, what the question is now, should we individually still write something up and then I can collect it? Or should we have a subcommittee that's write something? How would you like to do? I am totally.
I think it makes sense to have a subcommittee of a couple people up something
Okay.
based partly on this, but I also think it's nice if it actually had, if you could condense what we each said down to a sentence or two and have that at the end.
Okay.
Each member sort of
Oh,
said something. So there's the sort of official thing and then there's the personal
the
thing.
personal. Yeah.
So Marianne, we're not this is.
We are not the first committee.
So have we, what other committees are doing? Just curious.
I don't know. But it's now, we're getting now, it will be soon. It will be soon us because we're C. I think it goes alphabetically, I believe. And if one of them, doesn't have anything, then would. And I think so there is some sense of urgency. Because we don't want to put at the end of, which would happen. And if we do, then fine, we'll go to the end of the, who likes to go to the end of? So, okay, so let's do a subcommittee. I definitely, who else
Mhm.
would like to be on? We need some good writers.
You're not looking my way.
No, I'm not looking into a direction. at
I'd be
all.
happy to help.
Okay, maybe one more
person?
Okay, then it would be the three of. And I'll organize a subcommittee meeting. Soon, we'll have it soon.
I would say then it would be great if in each of you could, get your statement down to 1 or 2 sentences. And
Yeah,
that'll
and
really help us move along.
And I will reach out on the phone because it will be easier than by email to the people who are not here and ask them for the same thing and explain. Okay, so. You want me to call? No, I'm calling everybody. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I will do that. Sure. But you need, can you? Okay. Okay, all right.
Example, the whole, the town feature plan a little bit better appropriately.
Okay, sounds good. We'll do that. All right, so then we're getting to all this. And the first thing, and that was a part of the package, review and approve the final website wording of the tree permit. Did everybody have a chance to look at the list? I mean, we have already agreed.
So I looked at the list, but I apologize, Marianne. I cannot for the life of me figure out what you're,
Okay.
I don't know
I
what
will explain.
add 2021
I will explain.
and remove. And so,
I will explain.
okay,
Let me
'cause-
explain. So there is the existing list of the significant trees, which you see on the Appendix B at the top. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Can we start with Appendix A?
Now, I want to start with Appendix B for. So if you look at the list, and then we look at the other list, which was developed in 2020 by a subcommittee of Dieter, Paul Heipel, and Catherine. And they have taken off the bay laurel, and I will get back to that. And then they had added in 2021 limbs of golden oaks, limbs of leather oaks. And I have talked to Dieter about it, and Dieter and I agreed this is non-enforceable, doesn't make. So if somebody wants to cut a limb of a goat, and he goes out and says, oh, okay, this is, I now need a $95. Dieter says this doesn't make sense. He agrees.
So it was written to say that if they wanted to take out that tree,
No.
Yes, Judy is correct. I remember, I participated.
Well, what's the
subcommittee, I
limb
believe,
then?
well. Those trees that are listed there as shrubs, they are small shrubby trees,
multi-branched.
are typically very small. They don't reach large diameter. And so they wanted to set a small trunk size. So I think the use of the word
Ah.
limb stem or any single trunk larger than 2 inches, but it's still talking about tree removal.
Okay, thank you, because Dieter did not, so this is not about the limb. Okay, so
So,
can we?
Marianne,
word
I
it-
would just like to say that we, as a committee, approved an updated list. It was not a subcommittee that is a committee several years ago approved an updated
Okay,
list
I know,
for,
I know.
and so that's the other thing that got me quite confused
okay.
because
I just want to
Um,
bring it up for discussion because I didn't understand it, and if I don't understand. So this is actually, so the
Not
committee
disagree.
added golden oak, leather oak, coastal oak to be removed. And can we possibly write this in a in a more easier way, because
Any of the multiple trunks.
I think the note that is crossed out underneath the size refers to any one trunk, should just be
so we.
a
we
note that
copy
applies
copy
to
that down there.
higher list. Just
Okay,
make it a
That's fine. We can
asterisk
do
at the bottom and it,
And what about, okay, and then on the right, that 2-inch is referring to if multiple trunks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me if there aren't multiple, then what's the criterion for the?
So which list are we on? I'm sorry that
Appendix
I'm
E,
getting, now we're on,
the
A?
only appendix that has the appendix A. We can only be on that document.
well, you said you wanted to start with B, so that,
I said on B, I counted was there right now. So,
assuming that we're updating to the list on Appendix A and revising the language for the shrubby oaks, I think the answer to your question, Maria, is that all of the dimensions in the right-hand column apply to any one trunk of any, regardless of whether stem or because we don't define how to measure a multi-trunk common in tree ordinances. It's often left up to the arborist. The one issue is that diameter is usually measured at 54 inches above grade, and you may not be able to get that measurement on. So we could say, you know, I'm not sure. Often shrubby species like that are either measured by height or I think 6 inches above ground,
okay.
more of a nursery standard. I haven't encountered an ordinance.
Why 54? Why not 36?
54 is a standard arboriculture.
that's what it's currently,
It's a standard arboricultural height called diameter. That is 54 inches above grade is the industry standard for where the tree is measured.
Oh, what I'm asking, so can we do this really slowly? Because I need to understand that and maybe I'm slow, but I think anybody else would. So in keeping with the circumference and diameter, putting aside for a moment of the existing permit, what are we saying is the circumference and the diameter for those if they are not multi-trunk? We need that. So what is it?
2-inch diameter, and I think we're dropping circumference, not necessary.
So 2-inch diameter of the stem.
They are in fact all shrubby multi-trunk things. They're not trees.
They are not trees. So
Well,
they
they're-
always will
they're
be that way.
Horticulturally, they're
Okay,
trees, but
okay.
they're, in general, you don't see one that comes up with one trunk.
Okay. So then we'll take, does it make sense that we take off any and we take the if multi-trunk measured pertain to largest trunk or something?
Yes, that was what Megan suggested, that we
So
take
we'll
that
move
line.
that in every line. And
Or
then
just
we-
make it apply to the entire table.
Yeah, and a title table. Okay,
I think, but I
Good.
would say on those 3 species, they measured 6 inches. Just, Nona, do you agree with that? Judy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if 2 inches.
okay, what do you think?
Well, I'm just thinking what a manzanita looks like at 6 inches.
We're not talking about manzanita. We're talking about golden oak, leather oak, and cool.
And manzanita comes right after that.
Let's put the manzanita aside for a moment. Talking about these,
So we're not going to include.
we haven't
Haven't
gotten
gotten
to
there
that
yet.
yet. Systematically. So you have concerns about the 2-inch? Should it be 3-inch or 1-inch? Who came up with the number?
That original subcommittee.
Okay,
Well, 2 inches diameter is this. So if they've got multi-trunks and they're slow growing and they're rare and we're trying to protect
Yeah,
them,
absolutely.
2 inches makes perfectly
Okay,
good sense.
so
to
we'll
me.
keep that. All right. So are we all,
But add what Megan said, measured 6.
yes, we add that above grade, yeah. So those are those three. Now, let's get to the
Yeah.
Manzanita. The Manzanita, as we all know, the situation of the Manzanita has changed drastically since 2021. The fire department requests Manzanitas to be taken out. So does it make sense, if Peter said, let's cut it out, that the Manzanita is in this list, that it's added to the list? Why would we do that? Manzanita is not a tree. We don't have any other, we don't have the toyons.
So we discussed this in quite detail, a couple of years, updated this. And the thought at that time was that, yes, we were all completely aware of the fact that the status of man had changed for time given the fire issues. However, the other point that was being made, and the reason it came, because there are several older, well-established, beautiful, thriving, healthy men that are not in a fire hazard location that the committee felt should be addressed and protected if possible. So that's why it came about, was because we were seeing that people were just ripping them out. And these
Yeah, and that
old,
was the time we brought this property up at Blue Oaks that had taken all the Manzanitas.
well, no, because it could have been that as well, but I'm just wasn't as far back as
I
21.
understand,
And
But
I know,
would-
but I'm just saying the fire issue
Yeah,
was part of that discussion, Mary. That was, we were talking about balancing. So the 0 to 5 is one issue, but these old, almost heritage type men, at that point, we as a committee felt strongly that these beautiful, old, vigorous, healthy manzanitas should be not just subject to a whim for removal. And someone else can contradict me if my memory is, that's how because we were trying to balance.
I don't have a Manzanita on this list. Am I not? I don't have a Manzanita. Where?
I have the same,
don't have
the
a
same
Manzanita.
recollection as Teresa.
You should, because it's what it was on the agenda.
I don't know. I got
In
this
the
from
agenda pack.
Catherine.
I have the same recollection as Teresa, and
You
it's,
look
it's
what-
just not on Mary's
Oh,
printout
it's
for
just
some
not on
reason.
my thing. Oh, there it is. Okay.
So
It's cut off.
I'm,
Thank you.
I'm remembering, as you remember, and that we were trying to balance it out. And I think, I'm of two minds about it. I absolutely think that those, if they're not or close to the house, should be protected. How we make, an ordinance that doesn't have, everybody who's told to take out their manzanita has to come see us for a permit, that part of it. So the only halfway measure I can think of, or compromise kind of measure, would be to increase the 2 inches to 3 inches, because then you're getting closer to requiring a permit only for the truly stately. Whereas the ones that are 2 inches, there might be thousands of them in town. And with 3, that's the only sort of practical way to deal with it that occurs to me.
What do you think?
I think that seems reasonable.
So we would change it then from from 2 inches to 3 inches. And.
That might require some change in burl diameter. I don't understand burl diameter,
Okay, I
so.
will ask,
I think we could probably drop off the burl diameter. Just it seems like an extra complication.
oh, you want to cut it off? Okay,
So
so
the,
just say 3 inch diameter.
the other thing is, should we have but should there be something in there about where it's located? That, if it's in the 0 to 5, then obviously they have to take it out. Do they get a permit from us to take 0 to 5, even if I would say that's kind of bureaucratic foolishness.
So,
I think it's going to be so rare that there's a manzanita of that size
Up close.
that it
But
may be
what about the
overcomplicating
next-
things to try to.
What about the next 20 feet out, which is where the complication, where
If-
the fire department might want them at?
if a manzanita is like 6 feet away from the house, I mean, we can ask we can ask the fire department. Comes to my, if we say, something for the manzanita, not in 0 to 5, that leaves open then the question by many, well, what then about my oak tree at 0? So we possibly,
Right, and we're not trying to be the fire department. That's not our role. I'm just bringing it up because I remember we had this discussion and it was fairly impassioned. And it took us several meetings of
Okay.
discussing before we sort of landed. And I'm not disagreeing with us. 2 years, not longer.
4,
No, it's sooner than 2021.
January 26th.
We have
Oh, you
talked
talked about
about it since then, trying to say. I appreciate that might be the date that you've got with this, but my memory is that Megan was part of the committee. Request to consider Bay Laurels because that naturally,
Get to that point.
I'm just saying, this is, and it may be my memory only, which we're going to take that with a grain of salt, that it
That's
is
fine.
what it is. But I recall having this discussion more recently.
Yeah, this is, according to Catherine, I'm sure she's right. Catherine said, this is the result of the subcommittee, her, Dieter, and that it's,
So that's this one. So that's why Manzanita is not.
that's why Manson,
Fine.
oh, that's what.
As
okay.
you're proposing.
So I have, but why would you have a different one than?
This is what came in the agenda.
Yeah, but it came from me, so don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're talking about. So what I actually would like to say, as Dieter is not here, there is our. Why don't we table this until next month? When Dieter is here and Yogi is here and Catherine is here. This is not burning urgent. I have some concerns if we put something on that says, but at that location, I think that's not manageable. Yeah. So, I will update this with the 3 text. I can do that. And then it will come into the agenda. We'll take it. But before we do that, I would actually like to talk. What I have been, so the Bay Laurel at the moment.
Okay, which one are we on? A or B?
So let me rephrase myself. The Bay Laurel at the 2021 list is not a list that the town has ever adopted. Okay, so I actually feel that the Bay Laurel should stay on the list. And the reason I'm saying this is maybe we should look at the Bay Laurels the way we look at redwoods. And we have the redwoods and the redwood guideline. And we know that we have areas, alpine, where whole woodsy areas are nothing other than bay laurels. And the riparian areas are living off the bay laurels. And so I don't feel comfortable just taking those trees off the protected list. And if we can add some simple guidelines, like in a riparian area, simpler than the red, but something along those lines. So that's my suggestion. How does everybody?
Well, I know we have concerns about sudden oak death and the role the bay laurel plays in that. And we have, I believe, we ability to not just pretend that doesn't exist. However, I also am concerned that we just say, in all instances, all bay laurel trees, regardless where they are, can be gone with no repercussion whatsoever or no view. I don't know, I'm not the expert at all on this one. It's just having seen how many of them there are around. But I also am sensitive their role in harboring sudden oak death and interplay. So I would appreciate from our tree experts who
So can,
might give
I have
feedback.
two things. to say. I'm not the tree expert, but I have two things to say. That in 21, when we were doing all this, there the vector. And I think since then, my understanding is that now sudden oak death is pretty widespread on lots of things. Many other things you get from the nurseries have really eliminate it from their stock. Is that accurate? That you might buy an azalea that brings in sudden oak death? They've changed the rules about you used to not be able to all of those very extensive things. And I think they've dropped most of those all those
There are still best management practices that should be taken for any planting in and around native habitats related to both sudden oak death and other Phytophthora pathogens. I agree that bay laurel is no longer necessarily seen as the bad guy. There's so many of them. And I think that sudden oak death has been present in our environment locally for so long and has been tracked around on all of our shoes for so long, that I'm not certain that removing bay laurel is the most effective way to combat the spread of it.
Okay.
No.
I think it should stay on the list. And partly that's because we're losing so many oaks out the bays. I mean, that's an issue in places where. Hey, Laura.
Well, then is everybody comfortable with the draft that
I-
will come back?
I think it's a judgment call, just like every other tree.
Yeah.
I think it also, I mean, it will relate to fire hazard. Necessarily fire safe, and you only want them in certain locations on your property, but I think that kind of, again, reinforces the point that the point of this list isn't to tell people exactly fire safe way by trees that need a second look
Yeah.
before they get removed.
Because, for example, around rivers, creeks, and they play a vital role to hold the creek.
So there are really two areas. Then one's riparian enough to say, to add, say, non-riparian in
Well,
that
I-
line, but I don't know how you efficiently the other areas you're talking about where there are these large sort of forests of them that aren't really riparian.
Well, so should we add some guidelines? No guidelines.
I think we need to step back for just a half a second about what is it we're trying to give guidance to the, about when if they are asking to remove a significant tree, so we're big mamas, and we're not talking the little saplings, we're talking the big guys, well-established, presume, that rather than just in that situation, that there be an opportunity for just a check and balance. Is that not what we're really trying to do? I don't think we're tell everybody, well, this is when you should be thinking, it's more that, my understanding, got trees that fall into these categories, big old oaks or big old bays or whatever it is, before just removing that, it needs to be evaluated.
And, so if it's on the list, if it stays on the list, the subcommittee will go out, and clearly the subcommittee will look, is it right next? I mean, that's what we do. We just have to be consistent and yeah, consistent.
So that's why it would make not to include here, but as a side document, a small document, to have some sort of a guideline about it. Because when people say, oh, well, you let my neighbor, you made them keep theirs, and either you let them cut theirs down and you won't let me cut mine down. We can, as with the Redwoods, point to, a document that spells out our real concerns about that in these areas, riparian areas, the areas where they're growing, well, naturally, et cetera, that we'll protect those, and we won't be as protected about other ones, just like we are with redwoods. The redwoods are on the list, but we say yes or no to the same size redwood based on all these other things.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we leave it on the list
Okay.
with the same diameter.
Okay.
And create a much shorter than the redwood
Okay.
guidelines.
Yeah, so what
guideline.
I suggest,
Yeah.
I'll be happy. Let's do that. Does everybody follow that?
I wouldn't put it in this document because
No,
we're
no,
trying to keep
no.
this
Yeah.
short, simple, easy to understand. The only dilemma I have with the thing about, having a discussion about significant trees is absolutely that's what we wanted. So if there's a tree that we're going to say, of course, take it out, I feel badly that they would have to pay $90 to hear.
Well, that's the case with the redwood.
I know.
So just one other thing. I realize we're not reviewing all of this document, but I know we had discussed multiple times over the past year that if there is a specific request from the fire department for removal of certain trees, that we are not going to contradict that request. Is that not true?
That is correct.
Okay.
However, Kim said to us in the last meeting, the fire department doesn't request trees to be taken out.
Doesn't mandate.
Okay, so
It doesn't mandate.
Mandate, yeah.
so what I'm trying to say is that I realize we're not trying to get into the nitty gritty of the proposal for the text. However, when I'm just reading it again, after listening to our discussion, we only seem to talk about if your insurance company has requested removal. I'm just thinking it might be that we should include in there, or some other agency requested removal. Please include that with your app, or something to that effect.
The fire department enforces the fire ordinance.
I'm not talking about the fire ordinance. Your Appendix B text.
No, I understand. I'm responding. So the fire department will say this, the fire department will point out to a home that their tree is not in compliance with the ordinance. And that is a clear definition, like 16. So I don't think, I would rather not add other possible, I don't think this needs to be,
Then why are we including?
because the insurance is something people lose coverage for their house. Just because the fire department says this has to be 16 inches doesn't mean that the house is burning.
No, but if the fire department said, we recommend that you take these out,
We say yes,
we say yes. We will never contradict.
right?
So if the fire department is saying that, then why should they have to come to us for a permit?
For the same reason that the insurance has to come to us for a permit. Even if the insurance, they still have to come to the town for a permit. That doesn't exclude it at all.
I was just putting it out there that we might want to consider when we're looking. We're not going to go into that, just that we've, to our satisfaction, covered appropriate.
I can talk,
No, no,
I
could
can
s-
get some advice from Kim.
That's not what I'm trying to say, Mayor. Let's take it off.
Okay.
I think the thing to remember about the insurance requirements, they don't care what the species is. They don't know what the species. If it's hanging over the roof and they say,
The drone, the drone and the AI is
That's
seeing
all.
something and is doing a report. It's very different. Okay. All right.
Since they're, before we do leave, maybe we should make clear somehow that if the fire department requests that you take something out, we're not going to contradict them. We're not going to tell you you can't if they said you should. Because I think people should know that. Otherwise it gets to be sort of mindless Russian bureaucracy. You know, they say take it out and then you have,
The thing is, in the same way as people say, I got a letter.
But
and they never
sometimes
got
they
it. Let
didn't.
me finish.
yeah.
And they didn't. If we say, we are not even going to go out, you don't need a permission, if the fire department says we has to go, well, then there will be people who say, the fire department said so, and oops,
Of course,
yesterday.
but what, they have a report from, can't they take that to the town? Who are the people who actually issue the permit? And say, look, you know, the fire department circled these trees and said, I must take them. Shouldn't planning be able to say, okay, take them out?
we would treat that in the same way as we are requesting, as we're saying, arborist report, an insurance letter, then we would just ask for the fire department letter. We have to treat this all the same. We can't just, make this up as we go along.
But the whole reason we did the big thing about insurance was people were faking it. And
Right.
if you have something from the fire department, then you know they're not faking it.
Yeah.
so what about the situation? Fire department doesn't. What if the fire department says, you might think about taking it?
Right.
Does that constitute?
Trudy, the
Well,
fire
that's all they're
department
gonna ever
doesn't
say.
mandate.
They don't
They're saying,
mandate.
they do not mandate that the tree, they don't. We know that.
Okay, I would move, table this and take a look at it at a
Sure.
subcommittee level and see if there's a way to embrace the various topics we've covered and to make it clear but not onerous so that anyone applying for a permit will understand what.
I mean, one could argue the rational thing to do is to reduce the, as there are a lot of requests that we. Right,
No. They don't pay. They don't pay until no, they don't.
They only
upfront.
pay if
They pay afterwards. No, no.
it's, this says,
No.
upon receipt of the application and fee, staff will forward the application to the conservation.
Well, that's,
Find out what.
I will find that out.
Okay.
They do not pay, well, maybe they get it
We'll double
refunded.
check.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to pay for a tree
Then-
you're not taking.
All right, then it's.
I
the
will
word
check with,
is not
I'll
correct.
check the fee.
So that the website currently says on receipt of the application fee, that's how it starts.
I will check with the town. Okay. That's a very good point. Okay, all right. So let's go to the next point then. Let me back. No, nobody here today.
There is a phone number. I'm not certain who's on. You want to tell us who you are?
No, there is no hand up. Okay, let me go back to the agenda. So, the ADU checklist we've deferred. Catherine was going to give an update with the PCA ADU, maybe. Helen, could you tell us, did the town council at any way address the PCA ADU of the Alpine Road corridor? Last thing I heard, it was not going on, it didn't go on the agenda. No. The priority conservation. Okay, so nothing happened, which means that time has passed. There was a deadline. So this didn't happen. Okay, so that's the update then. Thank you. Yeah, I figured. Okay. All right. Then the next one is the wildlife corridors habitat preservation fencing ordinance. So we had the public stuff and you weren't here, but everybody else was here. We had the usual, we had about, I don't know, seven people. And the comments that were basically coming in a nutshell, Dana Breen was here physically. She supports code changes. She was talking mainly, the movement of the mountain lions, the deer, the snakes, the quail. I mean, we have figured out that, for example, a quail can move unless it can move flat, the first three, and hop or jump or anything. So David Cardinal was in that fence part of a problem equates to habitat loss. I've been discussing this, yeah. Karen Vatra asked how wildlife is and she noted that there is no one size fits all. And she also asked the committee to consider security. Christy Corley noted that deer can cross 4-foot fences. Well, we know that. And she noted that the bottom wire of a fence should not be barbed, allow animals. And she added that seasonal streams are an important habitat and cut off. It made a lot of sense. I mentioned the quail. MJ asked for clarification and expressed concern about her vegetable. And we were explaining that inside the property fence for vegetable garden. And then we also clarified that the changes would be going forward and existing deer fences or rows we might have. Rebecca was talking about her roses, her to protect those. She, Judy, you were talking about the trails and that these are obvious wildlife corridors, and asked about the required fencing setbacks. And I know it's in the ordinance, but. And then Nona suggested that the committee trails on the permeability map to further assess. And then Megan commented, while the committee has not toured all properties, there are 1 acre parcels that are landscape fenced, and clarified that the proposed changes would not require removal where they already exist. So that was in a nutshell. We didn't have anybody of the public who was really in any way against what, speaking up against what we are trying. In the meantime, the subcommittee has last week, and it's a complicated issue. Reiterate, we are leaving the smaller than 1 acre parcels out of our considerations because we don't really know how that would be a fair solution. So the 2+ acres has a pretty good ordinance right now, because the required yard, which is 50 or 20 and 20, allows a pretty good corridor opening. And so we're still grappling with. And we discussed a number of possibilities. One of the possibilities we started discussing, and we need to further look into that, is if we reduce the perimeter fencing all sides to 4 feet. The perimeter fencing. It would still allow property owners inside the property have whatever high fence they want, but it would certainly make it easier for the wildlife in terms of if somebody puts it, because 4 feet is something pretty much any animal can go over, and also bottom would have to be defined, that little animal. So that's we're thinking. I briefly spoke yesterday with Carter War, the chairman of the AACC, and I mentioned to him that one of the ideas we were kicking around was removing the size, reducing the size of the perimeter fence to 4 feet on all sides. And I was picking his brain what he thought, and he thought he would support this. So that is interesting. So what we'll do is we have some other ideas. So we'll meet again and we'll just keep plugging away. It's, as I said, it's complex. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And we need to preserve the habitat for our wildlife. You know, like I said, the mountain lion is a predator. If we lose the apex predator to inbreeding and what have you, then everything goes to hell in a handbasket, as the British, I think, say. So that's the update on slowly, but slowly come to a solution that then will be, you know, go to the committee. And then once the committee is comfortable, we'll put it.
So I thought the takeaway from the study was in favor of it theoretically, but if that, when it came right down to their lot, if they had a lot in the 1 to 2 acre size, and they were worried about, you know, their vegetable garden or the dog or that, then you started to run into resistance. So I think that's the big dilemma that we're in.
The one thing I should add, walk and run a lot through the. I now look very carefully, and what I have actually in central Portola Valley, where all the properties are 1 acre, that the fences there, the newer fences, they are actually 4 feet, and they are just like horse fences. So this is very interesting. I thought, wow. So well, maybe this is people in adding 4 feet fires, but you know, I know about 3 or 4 of them. But maybe this is actually something the community will support and will be happy about. So that's what we're working on. All right. Would you like to add anything? So where I am now. Did I skip something?
Owl box. Oh. Mountain lions?
No, no, I just finished D.
Balancing, yeah.
So now we're coming,
Owl. But I think it's mountain lions.
so we finished,
We're on item E,
we're on
balancing
5.
fire safety with habitat.
Finished E.
Comments? Comments on events of Woodside Fire, right?
You
yeah.
just finished that.
Finish D.
We just finished D.
Oh.
We're now at E.
We were talking about the
We're-
fences and the,
We just talked about the fences. So comments on the event we did with Woodside Fire, balancing fire safe habitat was on 3. Judy, do you want to summarize?
yeah, I would say that that event was an interesting combination. It was a terrific presentation. The conversation format worked extremely well. Kim and Nona were a great team in terms of deferring to one another and enriching one another's information. Everybody I talked to said it was terrific. People have since then come up. I think it began with a real tech debacle where it was unclear whether you're even going to be able to do it because stuff would work. And if we hadn't had help from the staff, several members of the staff coming. So there's a lot that just in terms of the town support for things like this was really glaringly, sadly inadequate. I don't know if that problem is going to be solved in the short term, but it's something for us to think about and be proactive about the next time. Probably line that all up, get it all organized, do a dry run, et cetera, before the evening. And then attendance was very disappointing. There was not. And that was one of the other things I heard from many of the people who were there was saying, gee, it's really a shame that not more people were here. You should do it again, kind of a thing. That was my big thing. They're still forthcoming and I haven't maybe progress. A video was going to be made by Kim's in, and she was going to edit what they got on their camera and put it together. Not very visible, so she was going to work the original slide deck and put them in. And they were going to put that up on YouTube, and we were going to post.
Yeah,
But it's still in progress. as
Yeah,
far as-
it's still in progress. And did I just read something somewhere that, oh yeah, it was in the paper, that with the budgeting, that website updates will go lower. than
Yeah.
going. So I don't know how to get it on the site, but I am on it. And what we were thinking that we repeat that event in fall and we do significantly more outreach. You know, we produce a flyer and we put Roberts and people didn't know. People did not know about it.
What I heard was it was just a bad timing, that there was so much else going on that people wanted to come and didn't come because somebody was graduating or somebody was.
So I think 6 o'clock was not good, 7 o'clock.
Right. I think, yeah.
So,
we
so and
definitely
we
know
have
that.
we have a list what to improve. We have that.
And yeah,
Um,
one of the things it's clear we should not, that from the very beginning, it's been clear that we needed some curtains in there to block the light, and they've never been able to. But it's really foolish to plan an event
with the
where you
sign.
have slides if you.
So we learned, and as Judy said, even I was sitting there and I thought, we will have to cancel this event with the people. So, no, no chairs, no remote. And thank God. Rebecca was helping a lot. And
Yeah, so Helen, I don't know if you heard this, but part of it was we were totally prepared to set up the room for our, but we arrived and we had the key to the room, but now they lock up the chairs. God knows who's. But they're padlocked and nobody had given us so it's 15 minutes before the event. We can't get the chairs out. It's like,
Yeah.
it's nuts.
it's,
They
it-
need a,
yeah, it either, either it needs a little bit of training, but it at least needs a sheet of paper. Uh, Because you can't, I can't, when I go and pick up the key, I can't say, is there a combination for the chairs?
especially if you don't know it's needed.
I have no idea. to
This is
ask
one of
that.
those other things where there's clearly not going to do something like this. And we have offered to make a checklist for the
We can do
community
that.
hall. And no one ever says, that's great. Why don't you do? At least draft it.
We can do that easily.
But if nobody's going to do anything with it, time.
Well, we'll do it for ourselves. We are good in process.
They have one key.
Yeah.
Well, no, we submitted the formal application.
But it was on the calendar.
It was on the, that's why there needs to be a checklist. Because
There
if
needs to
if
be a
Cindy's not there, then nobody else knows it. The only key to the projector is in Cindy's drawer. They used to have 3, now they only have 1. Somebody could duplicate the
Yeah.
key at least.
Or for example,
Maybe you guys could write up less
yeah,
on.
no, but
because-
it's in,
Because it's not really conservation.
Right.
yeah. And then there are things like one of the microphones that broken, might have said that for years, and another microphone had batteries that. So there are things you can't put. So that's the thing, if we could anticipate, but we can't.
Actually, I think they backed off they no longer offer audiovisual support as they've made that clear because they can't do it. Yeah.
So we did it
Well, the
ourselves.
stuff is all there. Yeah, you can't afford the staff, but if there were a checklist or if instead, 15 cables in a box, there's the 3 work with a label that says this goes here. Yeah, but Teresa's right. We should.
If there, yeah. Yeah, but what also would help if there would be a nice.
Well, we
can discuss it, yeah.
we can draw something up and then the hope that somebody.
Right, laminate. Yeah, that's what I would see. Yeah.
Well, we did find people. We went over
No,
and
no, we did have the
banged on
key.
the door.
We
So
did
it-
have the, that was not a problem. Having the key was not. a
no,
problem.
we didn't have the key.
Yes, I had the key. Yeah,
We
let's
had
move
the
on.
key to get in the room.
Right.
But we didn't have the other.
Okay,
key.
let's, yeah. We'll support, we'll try. Laminate, I'm all for laminate. Okay. I do too. I agree. Okay, moving rapidly along.
Tip of the month.
Tip of the month. So, maybe I'll do the tip of. Catherine hasn't been last month, so I don't know.
She was here last month.
Oh, she wasn't here on the special meeting.
Right.
I'll offer,
Why
I'll
don't you
try to
check-
talk to
check in
her.
with her.
I'll
See if
check
she-
in with
if she
her.
wants-
Yeah. Do we have any thought what we would like her to do for the tip of the month? Summer? If you haven't cut your weeds, cut them now or hold your breath.
Is it too early to do our first note about Detrichia? It's coming.
It's coming. I have
It's a
seen
little
it.
early, I
A
think.
I
little
have
early,
seen
maybe
it
next
that
month.
high.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my yard, one plant that high. It's coming.
So,
Let's
but
do
it-
it. I'll
it might
suggest.
Be better for next, I don't know.
Or if it goes out at the end of
Yeah, July and
July,
August.
then it might
yeah.
be the right
Do it
timing.
Both July and August, I think.
Yeah, both in July and August, the tree here. It's going to,
Check with Kathy.
I will check with Catherine. The grass. Yeah. Or they be eaten by the mountain.
So goats are not necessarily the proper thing for a lot of, for certain things. I mean, they do a job, but for example, with broom, they do zilch. It's all, looks like it's gone, but it's not, so
Well, they copy it. Yeah.
maybe.
The one thing is goats are the most expensive way for weed control. It's by far the most expensive. And it really only makes sense if you have 1 acre and probably make much sense to bring the animal. You know, this would be something for, you know, this would be something for the wildfire committee. Yeah. We're more talking with.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, say themselves. No, 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 please don't. Please. Should I suggest to Catherine, the tree here and weed whacking? I mean, there's no reason why we can't do the both.
Well, get tired of the tree. Critical time.
So then, should we do weed whacking instead?
Or unless she has something. Yeah.
Unless,
Yes,
or she has
I mean-
something else. But we should
I
do
think we
something.
would- We had talked about doing that last time. All right.
Doing what? Okay,
You look at it.
The minutes said that's
yeah,
what
but
we-
I didn't see it. I don't,
That's my.
I will ask her.
That was
Maybe she
Judy.
didn't write anything. Okay. Do we have some thoughts about blooming? Blooming.
Same thing. Talk with her.
Yeah,
She has.
okay, I will talk with her. Did she put something out? I didn't see anything.
Yes, last time.
She
yeah,
put it out?
yeah,
Okay,
we
okay,
would
good.
like-
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so Clark, you would be-
Clark here, okay.
Right.
The coyote mint is but it's coming to its end. Oh, of course, yeah, the clerk here would be, okay. I will check with her. So I have decided now to H, I will take over H as soon as no him, and I will track him down by phone. So Nona, just give me the name of the guy. I will track him down by phone because he's not right? He hasn't responded. We can do that offline. The student owl box, we have a picture. It was installed. And I sent article Elizabeth for the PV update. And Nona and I were considering what we should call it. And Nona, Judy and I, Judy, what was your brilliant? Celebrates. Is there a problem? Okay. But you just had it. Do we have to do something? You made a comment.
Well, we believe you there.
Okay, so while she is, don't give up, don't give up. We'll continue in the agenda and then we'll come back to it because I would like to show you.
The articles.
Yes. Yeah, then I probably have to see if Eliza is okay with it. I'll check with her. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, why not? Anything else? Anywhere else? Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. But I'll check with Eliza because, you know, there with her fate. Okay, while this is happening, there is no update on the fraud. I'll jump for the moment over and do both at the same time. Public Works, big update. We reached out to the new Public Works Director, suggesting that we would like to meet with him, briefly introducing who we are, that we did the main bring down for the open spaces and that we have a weeding plan. We haven't heard from him. Maybe I scared him off when he was helping us invent and I was frantic so I haven't heard back from him. I'll give him a little bit of time. I'm sure he's busy. It's not that time critical, but we would really like to meet because we had a very good working relationship. It would be important that we meet. Trails and Path, Teresa, do you have an update?
So the Trails and Paths meeting last week, the majority, a lot of the emphasis of that meeting was on budget issues. And in looking at the opportunity newly formed PV fund might offer to the community, it was an interesting and engaging conversation, just looking at different options and different projects that might be utilizing that. I think stay tuned and see how that progresses. Learn from their experience at specific projects, conservation front that we might want to follow a similar path.
Yeah, that's
So
a good idea.
It
Okay,
was,
thank-
it was an interesting meeting.
Okay, all
Short.
right. Thank you, Teresa. Wildfire, I was at, so there was really nothing pertaining the vegetation. They were talking about insurance and what have you, so. And we are meeting again. It might be coming now month. meet between January and June. So there will be another meeting on July 16th. We're still working on this? Yeah, okay. ASCC, well, if we don't have the online thing. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is the owl box, but this is the old one. But it's pretty much the same. It just says, no, the heading is different. Yeah, okay. So the heading says Conservation Committee. What are we saying? The conservation celebrates new, and, yeah. No, absolutely not. No, this is brand new text. We haven't even seen. No. The picture, you have seen the pictures probably. That's why you think it. The text was much. So, I don't have the text in front of me and I can't read this, but it basically it says that owl boxes or owls are really important predator and are a much better solution than the green cake that kills rodenticides. That's what the article basically is. Okay. And it gives her credit. And I actually an email today and I thanked her. And I also told her that this article is coming. And I told her she rocks. She really does. Yes, but I forgot. Yeah, I knew. It might even say, it does. Madeira, Corte Madeira. No, that's not. Okay, so that's that. And I was, that, yeah, the picture. Now I'll need the three pictures. We need the three pictures. It's the next thing on the agenda. And Nona, do you have something to come back now to? No. Okay, then we come to ASCC. And I just wanted to share with you some photos, which we're trying to get back. We had an ASCC site meeting yesterday on West Ridge. No, my photos. No. I want the trees.
I know.
Oh, you're leading into
They're
it.
coming. See, they're left. They're all doing it. So this is 389 Westridge, which Teresa, Marianne, Nancy, and I did in. This is the road right of way. And so, Marianne wants to talk.
Yeah. So at the ASCC meeting yesterday, the ASCC members were not in agreement with what we were what we were suggesting. However, I shouldn't be fair to them. They did not read until there was arborist report, and they didn't read our conservation committee report. So given that they didn't read that, I understand where they were coming from, or the plan, and they saw there were 65 X's for trees to be cut down. And those were trees that were already dead because this property had nothing going on for years. They were fruit trees, and then they were little trees like this, actually taken from you see my car there, from the very edge of the street and the driveway goes.
Why are trees? Usually it's only trees of any
Right.
significance that are there.
Right. So they're insignificant trees. However, I consulted with our And would you just repeat what you educated me on about little trees?
It is common survey tree 4 inches and larger sometimes.
So, yeah, so anyway, so they saw the ALCC saw those 64 X's and was rushing at me at the website. How can the Conservation Committee approve to cut down 64 trees? And then we clarified that actually there were 6 significant oaks. And this oak in the picture is actually the 6th one, and that was saved because they moved they moved the driveway. So then we're talking about 5, and 2 of them are actually in the building. So then we're only talking about. And they were still quite upset about all these. Yesterday evening, they were actually considering not, because the little trees were allowed to be taken out. But then they made a stipulation that there will be a subcommittee of Dana and Ms. Dixon, and a subcommittee of us and the landscaping person or whoever from the applicant side, and we will have another walkthrough, look at all the and decide then and there what to do. I took a few pictures just to give you an idea what we're talking. We had never had an issue like that actually another committee would turn on us because we have those little cripples cut out. They are also here probably in the right of way, so the town actually should be happy that they are ladder fuel. So okay, so we will work with them, and we will take it from there. On a very positive note, I have to say, Carter War, it's now the 2nd time that I noticed that he really goes to bat for significant trees. He, at the meeting yesterday, was actually asking if they could move the garage to save one very beautiful, significant there. Of course, the project is so far down the road, it's not feasible. But what it gave me the idea, because we were always saying, we don't say anything about significant where the plan says there is a building. And so seeing now Carter, maybe we should also start thinking a little bit along those lines and say, well, is there a way possibly to save this tree? Could you move something if you?
Well, we do that, I think, when it seems like a.
Okay, we do
priority.
that?
I remember distinctly a time or two, but we were most about shifting the driveway or
We do
something.
driveway.
By the time people get to ASC's houses, they're $50,000 into plans
Yeah.
and engineering.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at that point, it's
But
really
we are early.
hard.
We are early.
We're
too.
not early.
No,
Their
no,
plans
we
are all
aren't.
done by the time we plans.
Yeah, but we are way earlier than you.
But
we're
the
earlier
plans
in
are already
the
drawn up.
time,
Yeah.
But we're not
That's
earlier in plant, the money, time sunk into the planning. So I think it's not
It's not
realistic
feasible.
for us to
Yeah,
do that. I
okay.
think it just looks,
Okay.
I mean, unless there's one glorious,
Yeah,
then I think it would be worth mentioning, but
Megan.
I think, yeah, I wouldn't say that stage does feel very advanced, but things change after that level
Okay,
of development.
Okay.
And it's not uncommon to request changes, for cities to request changes in order to preserve trees. But it is very complicated to rework an entire design to preserve a tree. So I think that should be reserved for very special
very
cases,
special.
very, very healthy trees and design elements that appear, that appear to have reasonable minor.
And with the new fire ordinances, then that tree, it might not be at all feasible. But we are very moderate in, tree police. So we can certainly, in a nice way, bring something. I have never, when it was on the plan, I didn't say anything, but we
I
have
think
said
they
when
used
it
to do
was.
that a little. And the understanding was that the first go around, what, they might change things and
Yeah,
suggest that they change.
yeah.
But now they're often there for one.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. So we'll stay with our moderate educational approach.
so one question to ask about all this.
Yeah.
When, in the lot that's, there's a lot of space there and they're always, not these trees right away, which don't you leave a small tree or two just to be your future?
There
Canopy?
were 200 trees on the arborist report, not in,
Yeah, there is, yeah.
yeah, they had, and not even all the trees that were up.
No.
You can see how small they were.
Yeah.
There were literally
Yeah.
200 trees, of which 23 were significant. So,
And they have blue oaks, they have a blue
yeah,
oak.
no, I know, but it
It-
was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And it was particularly bad, I think, because this applicant was so cooperative. We met with the landscaping architect, as I mentioned earlier. Oh dear. And she made all the change. And it's actually interesting, the applicant is from they had originally along the road a sort of an East Coast flower garden. And we immediately said, this does not go with the West Ridge. So they changed that and they pushed it in to 30 feet. But Dana actually nixed it yesterday. I don't know where this. We did.
I would really like to move on, but I would also make the suggestion. There are times when we shouldn't advocate for preservation if it isn't appropriate for the
Right.
field survival. And I
Right.
think there's a tendency to say, oh, there's a little bit of space, we can keep that tree. And
Right.
they end up kind of like the redwoods in front of the fire station.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if these trees in particular that can't tell if that's an
Yeah, there
altered
is
pole or
there is
there. So
power line
in
there.
which case they'll be discontinued.
Yeah, yeah.
So don't
Yeah.
forget other factors.
So we will be reasonable and stand our ground, cooperative, but have our opinion. And then we'll see where it goes.
There's nothing else we can do. I mean, we can't deny people removing a non-significant
No,
tree.
and
We
we are
don't
not.
have that authority.
But the ASCC does.
I don't know if they do or not, but we don't.
think they
That's
can
what
stop, they can't stop them from,
But that's what they were doing.
they're making, I guess they can
No,
try.
So I
but-
think the takeaway, we write our report. And I know in this instance, it was written with a lot of consideration and clarity, but we have to consider that perhaps the audience that have been accustomed to writing our reports for may not be the same as it used to be, and we should be, all of us should be mindful that when 5 trees slated for removal of these X were significant, might be a takeaway for
Oh, we
us
said that.
as we're writing our
Said
reports.
that.
I appreciate that, Marianne. I'm just saying, just to reiterate, lessons learned so that we can move on. But it's a good point that we can all be reminded of. I know it was done. In fact, they had
Didn't help.
certainly doesn't help the situation.
Don't
I
confuse me.
really don't know what
Yeah.
that particular.
Yeah, no,
I mean, in fairness, pages, but at least 50 pages of that was the our report. Tree by tree.
Yeah.
And
no, they had no idea.
they just, I don't know. I mean, if I were to change the system anyway, it would be
Right.
as, you know, they get a package and this has been, it was on the fourth round through us when ASCC got it for the first time.
I think
And
They've been asking for that.
Well, you know, and Carter was saying there's 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms in this house and they have parking cars. And, you know, he wanted to keep trees, he wanted more parking space, but there isn't room on that lot.
No,
And
there isn't
so
room.
I think the only thing that could really improve it that involved.
Mhm. But they still need to read the report and we can't make them read. Okay, so anyway, that was, usually I don't have to report on ASP, so that was extensive. And then quickly, the last item, the update draft for the site review process and guidelines, checklist and the description. We are still working on this, but what we just learned yesterday with the ASCC, to have our site reports really consistent, clearly, step by step, so which is really important when we then have a contentious situation, because it was a contentious. So this just shows that we are on the right way there, that we are working on this process. You know, I'm a process person, So we will get it done. It take its time and it will be good when it's finished. And I think we're not going to, we had a number of trees. We never pressed the tree permits anyway. You have you have them here. They were 4 of them. 3 we approved and 1 we did. And we have no new business. Next meeting will be July 22nd. Who will everybody, you will not be here? Okay. Aha. So let me check. Maybe we don't have a forum. If we don't have you won't be there either? Okay. You will be here? We need 5. So you won't. So 1, 2, we'll see.
And you can
We'll see.
always poll like 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
determine
I'll poll.
Attendance.
But it's
and-
obviously more critical. Usually we always have a quorum. Okay, I'll do a quorum check. Yeah, okay, meeting adjourned, 8:35.
Thank you, Helen.
Sorry
Thank
if we
you.
were. We take it very important. It's very important to us.